Hey everyone, I hope all of you are having a wonderful day and welcome back to Kayan Al-Bashar, where today we're building a snake house or exhibit house, which is surprisingly also connected to two smaller implied aviaries, which might raise some questions. However, before we get into the build talk, I quickly want to address the changes in the upload schedule. So Kayan Al-Bashar is going from 2 times a week to 1 time a week, so it's going to be more of like a weekly catch-up with Kayan Al-Bashar. And I'm from this point on going to only really build the remarkable buildings on screen, because taking into account the first 2 episodes of Masyaf Castle, where we basically built the entire layout and fortifications of the castle, I felt like that could be one episode with like the jumping tower, the keep, maybe one of the gates. But besides all of that, I felt like the rest was not really remarkable enough, or at least not valuable enough to me at least, to actually put in the video. I felt like looking back at it, they were just put in the video just so that there was a video, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of just putting in footage that I don't believe is valuable enough to actually be in the video. So please do let me know if you think any differently, but I really just felt like I was putting out videos just, or at least putting in footage of builds that didn't really belong there and could basically just be explained in one sentence. I think you can really hear this in the second episode where we built the walls, because I basically rehashed everything I said in the previous episode. But everything that I do build off screen going forward from now on, I will tour after the speed build ends. So after the speed build ends, so let's say after the snake house and the smaller implied aviaries are finished, then we will basically tour in real time everything that I've built this week. So this is also an answer to the question of like showing you guys the completed builds. So after the speed build ends, then we will just basically tour everything that I've built this week. So yes, there's going to be less built on screen, but more shown actually on screen in a way. But again, do let me know what you guys think of this. Although I'm probably just going to try and see how this goes for a few weeks. If I don't feel like it's working, then I will probably change it again. But I have a good feeling about this, at least more so than what I've built previously. So anyway, talking about the build, and yes, I'm trying to get some weird segue in here, but it's failing miserably. But this building, or the snake house, actually started out as the rookery, so the birds were always there. It's just that the snakes were added later. I don't know why the snakes really took over the builds, but well, snakes equals poison, poison and assassination equals assassins, you know, it feels like a perfect harmony. And also you don't want the snakes actually inside the castle, because let's face it, you don't want them to escape, or if they escape, you don't want it to be your issue basically. So that's why there is a snake house, and then the birds, as I said, they were always there. But then I kind of pushed them to the outside, so the aviary was formerly the rookery, which is basically the place where you keep like your carrier pigeons to, well, exchange any kind of meal. But in Assassin's Creed, the assassins are actually more tied into with eagles. So there is a reasoning behind that, but I don't think it's that important to talk about. I think it's, well, if I have it correct, it's because like their first castle, or the first castle that the assassins occupied, which was, I think, Alamut in Persia actually, was really heavily tied to eagles, and I think they took that with them in the game. But yeah, basically that's the whole reason why I wanted to also have the aviary, or the rookery. Just so that there is a place to store the pigeons, or any birds, because probably eagles will actually eat the pigeons. But mostly the castle actually is kind of bare, like there are not much buildings besides the actual keep and like the Garden of Paradise, and maybe the jumping tower. But this building is actually not going to be inside the keep, it's actually outside, and it's kind of on the place where actually the village should be, or at least, well, it's in kind of the similar place that you see it right now. However, in the first instance, it was actually going to be located right next to the, I'm calling it the trap tower, where basically in the first, well, should I put a spoiler warning on this? But probably not, because I have no idea actually how old the game is, probably around 20 years old. But it's basically the tower where they drop logs on the Templars, and I think any besieging force. But later on I changed it because the building got too big. It wasn't because of like, oh, it doesn't fit there or anything. Well, actually it was, but it was mostly because it doesn't fit there scale-wise. So yes, this is one other building where I started out small and then it just ended up going huge. But anyway, about the aviary. So I'm going to quickly have to address, we don't have any birds. I'm not saying that there's an aviary DLC coming. I do think that we are like due for a DLC, but if it's an aviary DLC or like bird DLC or like an aquatic DLC, I have no idea. I'm in no way tied to Frontier besides playing their game. And yes, I'm saying those two DLCs because basically we have been screaming for those two ever since the game was announced, or at least that is what it feels like. So it feels bad on Frontier if they don't actually give us those, but let's just say the future will see what they will actually give us. But the aviaries should work. Let's just say I don't know the mechanics of an aviary, I just know it's mostly open and it's just like the holes are large enough that you can see through it, but the birds can't actually escape through it. Although I have a feeling that all of the aviaries that I built today are going to be able to be escaped from by the birds. Although maybe not by the eagles, but like the carrier pigeons probably. But then also like the carrier pigeons will probably be eaten by the eagles, so maybe that's also the reason why I have two aviaries. So one is for the pigeons and one is for the actual eagles. Although that's like making up an excuse after I've built it, because I just wanted two aviaries on the sides of the entrance of the snake house. And this is actually just a mashup of like, what animals do you not want to put together? Snakes, eagles, pigeons. One of those three is going to be eaten. Probably the pigeons, because let's face it, pigeons are defenseless. But yeah, the larger aviary I think is probably for the pigeons, because there's actually easier entrance from the roof. And the roof is actually a little bit modeled after the assassin bureaus in Assassin's Creed, the original game. Also a little bit, mostly with the canopy out front on the assassin bureaus in Assassin's Creed Revelations. But yeah, it's just a really small knot, mostly just because there's a hole in the roof. But the aviary, again, not useful or in no way implying that I know if birds are coming to PlanetZoo. I just had the feeling that they might come because we have been screaming for it a lot. But it should work, and I basically just took the idea of like, alright, aviary, let's make something out of that. But yeah, it's also because, well, as I said before, the castle is kind of bare, so all of the functions that the castle should have should probably be now outside of the castle if I don't want to change the actual castle itself. Mostly I just thought like, where are the kitchens or the smithy of the castle? Because Masyaf castle is again pretty bare. There's the keep, there's the Garden of Paradise, there's the jumping tower, and the rest is walls and defense towers. So that's basically why the entire aviary or rookery, or now it's a snake house, but it was first intended to be a rookery, is outside of the keep or outside of the actual castle. It's still on like a defensible location because, well, I built something later on that makes it a little bit more defensible, but yeah, it's really just there. It still fits in with the place, and I will show you guys that off screen, or not off screen, in the after video tour. It's going to take a while before I'm comfortable just saying that, but it works, and it does kind of make it a little bit more zoo-like. And also, this is just a quick thing to say, this is one of the first builds in a long time that I am able to put on a workshop. So in one way, it's kind of a normal build because it started small and then ended up huge. In another way, it's a miracle because it's under 4000k. So I think by the end, there's like room for 4 exhibits. There's 2 implied aviaries, so again, no birds, but maybe if an aviary DLC is added, I could change this building so that you could actually have birds in there. But we will see about that. But now to the second of, or the 2 other exhibits that are actually outside of the building, because they are a little bit remarkable because they also actually have an outside area, or at least implied outside area. Today's episode is just full of implied parts of the building. So the exhibits are in a way for me the most difficult things to style because you just get a box, and this is like the thing that I really loved, or loved the idea of when the game was announced, that we could like have an anaconda or a boa constrictor habitat. But no, they are in boxes, so I wanted to basically go back to that idea of like having an outside area for these snakes, which might be a bit dangerous, so add that to the list of like things you don't add. Outside areas for snakes, which might be easy to escape from. And also thinking about it, I actually selected all of these snakes are desert snakes, so they should be able to normally just survive in Kayan Al-Bashar, although they're from all over the world, because let's face it, well, actually most of the dangerous snakes come from, you guessed it, Australia. I don't know what's the deal with Australia and just killer animals. I think even the cutest koala bear can kill you there. But anyway, going forward from that, actually, all of these snakes should be able to survive just normally in Kayan Al-Bashar, temperature wise and such. And actually this is something that I kind of was surprised by, so this was kind of also an accident. But one of these snakes that I built on the outside is more, or at least more acclimatized to like a humid region, or at least a humid area, and the other one is more like actual desert. And surprisingly, I put the outside exhibits on, well, just the right climate, because the one that I'm building right now has a lot more like plants and such, so I consider it a lot more of a humid exhibit. And the other one, which has the more deserty snake, actually has a lot more just dry area. Also, yes, I originally also thought to make that drier outside exhibit, or outside implied part of the other exhibit, is to be actually for, what is the name of those things? This is just, maybe this is like the Dutch word of today, but in Dutch we call them stokstaartjes, which I think is like meerkats or something in English. But yeah, they're just those animals that just stand up straight like a stick and just live in a group. And I think you guys know what animal I'm talking about, because let's face it, the size of these outside or outdoor parts of the exhibits aren't that large, so they can only house small animals. Although I think the meerkats, I'm probably mistaken on the name, but you didn't come here for proper pronunciation or proper naming. But they actually, well, they probably could also escape from these exhibits. So yeah, that's another thing that went somewhat wrong, but I don't care because it looks good. So of course, because it's an Arabian build, or at least Islamic style build, I needed to add a dome. So this is, I think if I'm correct, the place where we sort of end the snake habitat, or the snake house and the aviaries. But yeah, I needed a dome. I mean, I actually also took inspiration for this dome from, well, did you know, Assassin's Creed, because that's, I think, the game where I take most inspiration from. Although the Kayan Al-Bashar is not based on Assassin's Creed, it's just like lately this build, or Masyaf Castle, is taken from Assassin's Creed. But in today's video we basically just go against that a little bit and change it up so that it fits in with Kayan Al-Bashar. because as I said, the place where the snake house and the aviaries are located is where the village is actually supposed to be, but I'm not going to build that village because I think the village of Masyaf is really boring. Like, I only remember Masyaf Castle and the village is just there. So I'm not going to build the village. I mean, we are going to have the traders district in its location, so maybe in a way that could be the village, but yeah, that's basically a real big stretch there. But yeah, the, well, dome, I would say, it's kind of similar to what I've built already. I wanted to actually have a metallic dome, but I couldn't find the right metallic pieces for that, so we're just having to do with like a tile dome instead of a metallic dome. Even though I think a metallic dome would shine so just good in this location. So sad, but or at least I didn't find the right pieces for it. I might again change this later on, but right now I'm actually really happy with the dome. And also it's this is again a mistake, but one of the windows actually faces like the entrance and not just straight forward, which looking at it from like guest view or like digit cam actually looks great because there's even more attention towards the entrance. But yeah, it wasn't actually intended that way. But we're also, because lately the builds have been really heavily inspired on Assassin's Creed, let's just say there are a lot of things where I'm just like, oh, we could add this as like a climbing spot or something, where like it says it's free run. Again, this probably makes no sense to anyone who hasn't played Assassin's Creed, but I really just, I mean, I'm a squirrel, or at least I say I'm a squirrel, so I enjoy climbing things. I still want to climb the Efteling entrance, for instance. I will probably get banned from the entire park for that, but that's the squirrel dream, I would say. But here is something that I actually planned right from the start, of, well, basically the castle. I didn't have the idea of like the Mirage Mountains then, but after the first version of the Traders District was finished, this is what I was actually gearing up towards, which were, well, they have a different name actually, and yeah, I'm completely sure that they have a different name. I think I've actually found it, but I've forgotten it. But I'm just going to call them Ottoman cannons. So these are basically just cannons on just every kind of truck. They are huge, and they are also blue, or at least this blue greenish color, because I think they're like made from copper, and then of course copper over time just gets this blue greenish color to it. But I think the biggest thing about these cannons is they are huge. Also, I needed to rebuild wheels because the wheels that I had for the Gypsy Caravan are too small actually for this. And yeah, these ones are actually the second way that I built them, because the first one was too small. So with the snake house, I constantly built it too large. With these cannons, or at least this cannon, I actually built it too small. So this video is just full of contradictions. Full of animals you shouldn't put together, full of safety hazards, and full of just things that are too small or too big. Although I'd never mind something that's too big. That wasn't how I intended it to come out. But anyway, so yeah, the cannon is huge. As I said before, it's just, let's just say if you face this towards castle, you could probably take out a wall. And I'm not joking there. It just, why are they so huge? I mean, I get it because, you know, besieging things is probably a lot easier with larger siege weapons, but comparing it to like the just idea that you instantly have when you think about cannons, these are just, they are huge. I think this cannon is like, well, thinking of PlanetZoo scale, what, 8 meters long? Or at least the actual cannon part is like 8 meters long. So yeah, it's also built of like, I think fire hydrant thingies. Yeah, I'm calling it thingies because I have no clue what they are actually named. But I also needed to hide the inside because then you could see the actual piece being used. So I think I later on just put a basic piece or something in there, or some kind of metallic piece. But yeah, it was Actually, I think I built a flower pot or something in there, just so that you couldn't see the actual inside. But that's actually it for everything that I found remarkable this week as I built it. So we are going to step forward into the real-time tour of everything that I've built this week. There's a lot of things actually that I built off screen. So we're going forward to that right now. So we're back with that tour that I wanted to implement from now on, where I show you guys everything that I've built this week. So this is basically everything that I've built this week. So what we built in today's video is this snake house here and these cannons, which I placed pretty much in all the spots that I wanted. So this was actually this thing that I wanted to do to the left side of the castle, for which I needed to add a gate here. So there's basically just an area for all these cannons. I might change up the walls here because they might be a little bit too low. You could maybe like knock the cannons off the islands, which, well, might be an issue considering how probably expensive they are, or at least troublesome they are to actually get here. But starting with what we've built today, so going quickly to the actual thing. This entire snake house, well, all of the surroundings are somewhat completely finished. I still want to do something to the back of the building, but there are snakes in there. There are also the two aviaries, which are empty, but I am thinking of making like fake birds for them so that there are like fake eagles in them. And maybe after the aviary DLC is released, because I still think that we will eventually get one of those, I might be able to put real birds in there. But now to the other side of the actual snake house. So this is where the other two snakes are kept. You see the outside habitats or the outside parts of their exhibits. Again, saying that this is the more deserty one and the other one here is a little bit more of the lush humid one, which actually corresponds well with the snakes that are actually kept in them. So I built this one off screen because it's not that remarkable, but yeah, the rest of the building here to the back isn't that much like in your face. It's basically just very muted. It does have this very lush, I would say it's a garden or park with just a kind of retreat area where after like the busyness of this actual snake build or snake slash aviary build, it's kind of just a place to relax, although there's not much for the guests to do there actually. I wanted to build a gazebo or something like that. Again, I'm stuck in rocks and trees because even though I want to do these tours, I'm horrible with the camera, or the camera just hates me. But you might also see on the top of the building, there's an actual rope connecting it to the trap tower. Because, what was it called again? Well, in Assassin's Creed Revelations you got it so that you could basically rappel or just go from one place to the other by this rope. So you had like a hook to be able to slide down or whatever. You could basically go from the tower to the aviary slash snake house. So this entire area I actually built off screen because I don't think that tower was important enough to be built on screen. It was just, well, the roof is fun, or at least was annoying to build because it has a weird angle to it. Quickly going there. Yeah, I actually built this roof entirely like it is in game. I also built like this sort of climbing area because this is the only way you can get into the tower. But yeah, you can already see the weird angle on the roof. I don't know why it's there, but it was there. Also, just quickly going into the actual building. Yeah, there is space. Oh, I forgot to put the floor in there. Oops. This is also one thing. I can show you guys the flaws in what I built or what I forgot. There should be a roof in there, and I'm going to place like logs in there just as that nod to the actual use of this tower. So that's going back to the front. You can actually, release this, and then just the logs will just crush any enemy in front of it. But the other thing that I've built which is also in-game, but I changed for Kayan Al-Bashar because Kayan Al-Bashar floats, is this kind of like area where you just free run around to get to the actual tower, so there's a real like climbing area. Again, this isn't Assassin's Creed, although this place is very heavily inspired by it, but it's an interesting area. Also, I still need to finish the jumping tower, so that is still something I'm going to do off screen, because this is the last episode actually that I planned for Masyaf Castle, so I consider it for video purposes, or at least Speedbuild purposes, done. I'm not going to add anything more to this area in like the way of builds, but I still need to finish up the castle. So that's still something I need to do, but you have like the jumping area that you do. Well, basically it's the first thing you do in the game, where you just make this leap of faith of this tower, and it looks like you're just basically killing yourself. I mean, I think that was also the idea, that any enemy coming thinks that your soldiers or your assassins are just so motivated that they would kill themselves for you. So I added that, but I still need to finish the rest of the tower and some parts of the castle actually. But the majority is done. Then I have this small little island to the left side, which, as I said, is the only reason why I needed to have a gate here. But I just thought it would be a nice way to have like defenses in case of an attack of Kayan Al-Bashar. That made sense, because Kayan Al-Bashar is probably only going to be attacked from the air. So that's why those huge cannons are here, and I don't know why I wanted to make them huge. You probably don't need that much to take down an airship, but let's just face it, Kayan Al-Bashar is all about overkill and making things way too large. But the most important thing, of course, for today is the snake house. So we're going back to that. And again, it's a very lush place. This is just a transition area from the more deserty area of the castle to the more, well, lush area of Kayan Al-Bashar and the traders district that's going to eventually come there. But that's also why there's also already a place for the path to connect to when we go and build the traders district. Then quickly just taking a look, well, inside the actual snake house. We will probably not be able to find it, but there are some bookshelves, there are some smaller implied exhibits, which again don't have any glass, so yeah, this is just a whole mashup of like things you shouldn't do. Although I did make it a little bit realistic for like the aviaries, that there's an actual door for like your staff to actually enter the aviaries, because otherwise the birds would starve. So made a quick little thing so that the snakes wouldn't get to the birds, because again, this building is just a mashup of things that shouldn't go together but do, or at least shouldn't go together realistically but do look great. But that's actually going to be it. So as I said, this is the last big build on Masyaf Castle. I think there's going to be one more video on the Mirage Mountains next week, and then we will go into the next phase of Kayan Al-Bashar, which I'm going to let you guys decide, because as I said, I wanted to build the palace, but I'm also, now that we are here, thinking of rebuilding the traders district, of course with a lot more animals and maybe even with more aviaries. I almost messed up that word. I actually did mess up the word, but let's move on from that. So what do you guys want to see? The traders district rebuilt in a completely different fashion, because I'm not going to build a huge station. I'm actually not going to put any transport rights in Kayan Al-Bashar, because they just looked strange. But the other option is the palace. So what do you guys want to see first? And of course, I'm asking for your suggestions, and I might just build whatever I want, but I'm going to let you guys decide this time a little bit more. But anyways, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the new setup for the videos going forward from this. And I wish you all an amazing day. I hope to see you back in the next one. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, because it does help out a lot, and I love to see you back here. And that's it. Have an amazing day, guys. Bye bye.